My name is Zainab Onuh-Yahaya. Over the past few months, as part of the Advocacy Assembly Internet Shutdowns Fellowship, I have been working on a research project on the impact of the Twitter ban on digital activism, creativity, advocacy, and the documentation of human rights abuses, and particularly what that impact has been on individuals who utilize Twitter for the work that they do in these areas. This is what they have to say.
It's a no-brainer that Twitter, now X, is very instrumental to what we do here at No Lie.
Social media is increasingly the fastest and most efficient way to spread information, awareness, and for large groups of people to just sort of organize. So it's important to everybody, not just young Nigerians. It's important to young Nigerians, older Nigerians, middle-aged Nigerians, people of all ages and demographics.
The Twitter app ensures that I'm able to reach out to any citizen that is in trouble, or to be able to trace or gather information about them.
Twitter is a platform that you hate to love, you love to hate. It's very efficient, it's very effective, it's useful day in, day out. If you want to know what's happening anywhere in the world right now, you just go on Twitter, you check the location or you check the keywords and you see what's going on.
No Lie ran a Justice Education Nigeria campaign across various online platforms. The campaign aimed at making these resources available to users all over Nigeria and reached millions of users across various social media platforms. However, the ban on Twitter impacted the campaign as we could no longer reach a large following on Twitter. And of course, the campaign had a specific time frame, 6 months to be precise. And by the time the ban was lifted, the campaign had ended.
A social media ban in the current status quo, in the current political landscape, would spell disastrous outcomes for young people across Nigeria. This is because we have come to rely on social media as our emergency contact center. It has also become where we do most of our businesses, find jobs, reach out to our political office holders.
The Twitter app ensures that I am able to mount pressure on relevant authorities and agencies involved in many of the human rights cases, and then also it enables me to sensitize citizens on their right and obligation, which I do Monday to Friday using my hashtag negatives by Redwan.
Twitter used to be and is still very important to my work as a journalist. I remember during the Twitter ban, it happened at a time when we as in the media organization that I work with, were trying to find alternative ways of presenting the reportage and stories that we were finding. So we either had to get Africans who were not based in Nigeria or people who were based in Nigeria but were willing to use VPNs to access Twitter. And not everybody was willing to do that.
That can be quite annoying when you live in a country where you might get information blackout because some minister feels offended that a platform is exercising its policy, its right to reduce hate speech and whatnot on the platform.
And so any form of ban or censorship for any social media platform is going to be incredibly bad. So things like this also impact how journalists are able to gather sources, how they're able to talk to people, how they're able to access information, because even journalists need information to create more information, right?
And so when there's a ban on social media in Nigeria, it affects not just our businesses but the work that we do. For creatives, it means that it limits the number of people who have access to their work, and so it affects their income.
It's not only going to affect the general well-being of the society, it's going to affect people's political consciousness, which would then go on to affect the ways that we are able to understand and interact with the concept of democracy, which again is bad especially because of the way that African countries have been overtoppling their democracies and establishing a military order.
It becomes problematic and it becomes a strong hindrance to what we then interpret or understand as democracy and how our institutions either get strengthened or they get defaced by the people who are supposed to represent our interests at different levels.
Politicians in Nigeria are inaccessible, and social media is one way that we are able to reach out assess them and also influence policies that are being made or discussed, or make impacts on policies that are being made. And sometimes our decisions, our conversations, and reactions to policies are considered.
And when you have a platform like Twitter that can help tell the world immediately that someone is being brutalized by the police somewhere in Nigeria, and the world can take action on that and can support that, or can be against it, can rally around the victims, and those platforms are being policed by government agents.
As a development practitioner working in the area of women and girls, one way that the social media ban, the Twitter ban especially, had affected my work was in reaching my target beneficiaries. These are people who have ordinarily interacted with us or reached out to us via social media, Twitter specifically. But because of the ban on Twitter, we are unable to reach out to these people, and so it affected the work that we had started with them, and them having access to resources that was critical for them at the point. There are people who had never interacted with us via any other social media and did not know how to.
So when other alternative forms of communication and awareness and information are being crippled, it just goes on to affect the ways that people are able to care for themselves and the people around them. But after the ban was lifted, I realized that I was using Twitter more as a professional tool rather than as a social networking platform. I had already turned to places like TikTok, Instagram, and even WhatsApp to be able to communicate and share my personal and private thoughts.
So there is physical departure from Twitter, and there is also thematic departure. People who no longer talk about politics and just tweet about Naomi Campbell and any other global scandal that doesn't touch Nigeria.
It's not just about keeping newspapers alive. It's not just about keeping radio stations alive. It's about keeping social media platforms alive.
Without social media, which is where people can keep track of these trends and just generally see what's going on, people are going to be unable to develop adaptive measures that they can use to circumvent the ways that other criminal gangs are changing their own operations, which just leaves everybody vulnerable. But still, it's better to be able to put a call through to a security agency when your area is under attack and expect that they might come maybe 3 hours late than to not be able to reach them at all. So if social media is making things like this difficult, it just leaves not only lives but properties also vulnerable to all forms of attacks.
You have just listened to civil society actors, journalists, human rights defenders, activists, and creatives talk about what Twitter means to them as a platform and the impact that the ban has had on their work. This compilation first amplifies the voices of young Nigerians, their experiences and their perspectives on the Twitter ban and what it meant for the work that they do. It also provides a deeper understanding into how an infringement of the principle of the freedom of expression could have far-reaching consequences for citizens' participation in democratic processes, citizens' engagement in governance, and how it basically just tramples on the rule of law and democratic governance of a country like Nigeria. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this has served as a valuable resource on digital rights, digital activism, and how social media regulations could have these kinds of consequences on real-life individuals and persons who utilize these platforms for important work.